So the difference in education across the board, you started to talk about HBCUs. I had many questions on that. Talk about the differences as far as like schools, good schools versus schools that some may not want to, they really don't want to go to. So then we're talking about not just public education, but also the private education, private schools, and also even some charters, depending on your region. So I want to see if I want to share this experience, because when I came out of high school, well, I even say before then, I say probably around middle school, I wanted to go to HBCU. And the particular one that I wanted to go to was in Louisiana. So at the time I was about to graduate, not just at the time, of course, you had to do things beforehand, but I went on the recruiting trail because I was in sports, and I saw education from even another vantage point, because while you're entertaining, it's different than when you come to educate. It can be in certain environments. But I reached out to this particular HBCU, and at the time I was ranked in my particular field, my particular sport. And I called them. I was like, "Hey, I want to come here." And they said, "Okay, first of all, we know who you are, and second, is you're better off going to a PWI because we don't have the money for you." And just for me, it was just like, all right, well, here I come to a time where what I say is go to college, do the American dream, everything else. And then to be stopped and halted, because I was just like, I need to be somewhere where I get more a sense of me. Because when I'm going into these institutions when I was younger, although I had white friends, there was white teachers that, looked out and everything else, but just the experience that comes along with that. Certain traumas that people don't want to speak about, microaggressions. I go into all that just to ask this question. Do you think the experience from public education really crosses over to private schools, or even charters? Does that question make sense, what I'm asking?
Like, would you get a better education at a private school and a charter?
Or just the experience?
The experience, I think the experience would be even more racially traumatic at a private school because of the lack of diversity and the lack of just diverse people. Right. Unless they're giving a few, I'm sure they're giving a few scholarships, but if you can afford this school, you're already sort of middle class or upper middle class.
Right.
So you're going to not get a diverse thought process and experience and socioeconomic sort of level. And so that is something that many people that choose to send their kids to private school, they also make sure they put them in programs and other things that can expose them to something different. So I think you have to make an intentional effort there. My daughter went to private school, the kindergarten. She went to a Montessori. So I wanted a Montessori approach. It was not helpful for her, but it was a good school. I learned over time that was not good for her because she wasn't a self-starter, and you have to be very independent. Then she went to a Christian school because we were interested in a Christian education. So I think, and then she hit microaggressions in 3rd and 4th grade. But if you go to a private school because they offer something specific. Now, I know some people that are Christian Baptists like myself that send their kids to Catholic school. Personally, I don't want them learning something else. That's just me, even no matter how good the school is. Because they're going to require them to adopt Catholic religious, and that's important to me. But if it's not important to you, then that's fine. But just know that the private schools often have a vision and a particular thing that they are pushing. And if that's something that you support, then that's good. We don't have charter schools. I don't know a lot about charter schools, but I do. My stance is that if your public school has proven that they're not able to do what you need them to do, I am open to options, right? And I think they have more flexibility in what they can do. And that is something that some people might be, open to. Public school is one of those things where you can get what you need if you advocate and fight for it and have the resources to get it. And I ran for school board. And so I looked into this. So for me, it was Fayette County Public School has a lot of different programs. Many of them don't have transportation. So it's not really accessible to people. And so, and I went to UK, which is a large university, has everything you can possibly think of. You won't know that until you talk to people and learn and take initiative to do that. Right. You will get what you need from public school because the squeaky wheel gets it, right? If I call up and they're, and advocate for my child, but I do have a problem that I have an education background, and so I can probably speak about things that most people can't, but other people don't have that kind of time and resources, and it should not be that way, right? I shouldn't be that, you had to know somebody to know that they had this program over here. And so that often leaves us out. It takes, probably 6 months for us to get the news that other people may have had.
Like, they've been keeping this a secret.
And then you still got to fight to get in it because there's small number of slots. It's who you know. And so I do have a problem with that with public school is that if it's public, it should be available to everyone. They should be intentional effort. For example, my son is in pre-engineering. Okay. He was in a pre-engineering program in middle school. I assumed that made him qualified for the high school program. He took a test. He did all of these things. He qualified. He did not get in. I asked him, you were trying to increase diversity is the reason why you started the middle school program. He's the only African-American male in here. So why didn't he get in? Well, we didn't know. We don't look at race. Well, how are you going to ensure racial diversity? First of all, his name is Malik. So, I don't know. But, and so my question would be, you're saying these things, you want racial diversity, and we're not going to even talk about the performing arts program that we have here. You got to be a child prodigy to get through 200 applicants and 25 slots, right? Wow. you can't be natural talent. You've got to be somebody who's had lessons.
Right, exactly.
And so we can't accept that many students because we don't have the space. We'll move the program to a bigger space. We don't want to talk that because we want to make it exclusive, right? We don't want all the kids in there, right? Right. So I do have an issue with public school being more like a private school for a lot of people because people are good at getting what they need. I've been good at getting what I need for my kids, but it's constant effort and it should not be. But I don't encourage necessarily me personally, just because I know a lot about microaggressions in putting our kids in private schools for the education, because on the psyche part is more important to me. I think we can supplement the academic part. And I also encourage HBCUs because right now, we want students to finish. It's not about getting into college. It's about finishing.
So do you see that crossing over into higher education? Some of those things from that you were discussing?
I think when it comes to college education, especially the undergraduate, you need to make sure that you check the accreditation of the school. And I think you need to be careful about online schools and for-profit schools. Program if there's a school that has an actual brick and mortar and it actually has so you do need to check the credentials of your school. But then I also, like, for example, when I started school, I knew I was going to graduate school. So if you want to go to professional school, meaning a law degree, a medical degree, and all of those things, your undergraduate years could matter, not so much that it's a particular school, but that you do well in your undergraduate years and that it's accredited. I don't, there is a saying, there are certain schools that you go to like Ivy Leagues or Transylvania University here, where that degree, they know that the rigor of the education is there. The rigor is not there, meaning the GRE or the medical exam or the LSAT, things like that. And so if you're a good student and you're at one of those schools, it will all come out in that standardized assessment that's going to get you into graduate school. So I think for the undergraduate years, you might want to play around a little bit, but in all schools, it's all about researching the accreditation. If they're in a state where they're on probation or they will promise you that they're going to get it, and they'll tell you that. But if it's not accredited, then you essentially did it for nothing. And for the most part, it's all about whatever your career goals. If you already know that you want to be if you know you're going to go to professional school, you know that you have to do well. If you know that you're going to be an engineer, and you can probably get a 2.0 and be an engineer and do very well, it's one of those careers where you don't have to get an advanced degree, I think.
Nothing ever was handed, all about respect, never about ego. Wish I could have retired a long time ago and disappeared way beyond the trees. But my homies kept influencing me, said they needed to hear my lyrics, like my flow, cause they felt my spirit. Plus the people needed to hear it, a conversation with conscientious lyrics.